Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Endless Celts Podcast. I'm Stephen, the host of Endless Celts, today to be joined by my co-host John. How are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
You look good holding that tooth again. I mean, we were speaking off air. This is the first time we've done a duo together since the Neil Lennon when he left. It's a long time, isn't it?
It's been a while. I think the very first ever episode we done together, and then there was the breaking news episode we did when it was announced that Neil Lennon had left on that day. That's the first time it's just been us two since then, kid.
Yeah, 100%. Let's get stuck right in. And what was the goal of the game of the weekend? It was Celtic 1, Dundee United nil. A tough game by all accounts. Dundee United came in the Celtic Park to try to stifle us, which they done basically until the last kick of the game when Abada scored that fantastic goal. The touch, the finish, the composure, the show in that kind of environment was fantastic to see. But just to touch upon the game itself, John, what was your biggest takeaway from it?
Honestly, that's a tough question, Stephen, because like for me, we should have buried them. We
Mm-hmm.
really should have. Like we dominated the match, the majority of the match. The amount of chances we created. I mean, in all fairness, Seagrass saved them an embarrassment. Like that could have been double digits if not for Seagrass. So I mean, he was on form that day, and sometimes when a keeper's like that, it's very difficult to get past them. And like every other team that we've played against this season, they defended against us really well. They set up to stifle us, like you
Yeah.
said, and it was just one of those games where it didn't look like it was going to go our way. And when, especially when we going into that game, knowing the result in the game beforehand and what that meant for us, um, it made it as a fan anyway. It made the game more intense, and as that match dragged on, and that goal wasn't coming, or at least on the face of it, it didn't look like it was coming. Especially we was going down to 10 men, and then taking and listen, I love Ange, and it worked, and all credit to him. But at the time when he took Giacomakis off for McCarthy, when we needed a goal,
Questionable.
I think we were all just sitting there questioning what the hell was actually happening, like what is going on. But like you said, I think we controlled the game. But the biggest thing to take away from it is we really need to start putting these chances away because we're creating so many chances, and we just aren't hitting the back of the net often enough for me.
Yeah.
And these results, we're having a lot of results, especially as of late, where it's like 1-0s and last minute winners and things like that. And it doesn't accurately portray how dominant we've been throughout the match. But we need to start putting chances away. The biggest thing I can say is that.
I mean, it's almost like we start the game, breakneck speed, especially at home. And it's like the game plan, what you can see anyway, evidently, is we're trying to kill off teams in the first half. And when that doesn't happen, obviously we had that break, so you account for fitness and stuff. It seems like we kind of tail off just a wee bit when you come to the second half performance. But touching upon some players that played well in the game, for me, Matt O'Reilly, John, I thought he was absolutely fantastic. We've picked him up for 1.5 million from MK Dons. What's been your impressions of him so far in the Celtic shirt?
He looks a player. He looks like he's fit right in. To come up into a team, I mean, he got thrust in his debut the other day, and he gave a good account of himself at Tynecastle. And to come up, he's barely had a minute to train with the team, get used to the system and everything else. But he looked like he'd been there all season,
Mm-hmm.
and he seems to already have like an eye for a pass. His delivery is spot on, um, and he looks like he's going to fit into that midfield perfectly. And I said this on the last podcast as well, that it's gave that midfield is stacked.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you look at once everybody's back from injury and the squad's at full strength, you're going to have an absolute headache deciding who's going to start because we've got so many players performing. You've got O'Reilly coming in performing well. Hatati has been performing well. Bitton in that sort of anchor role, that central midfield role, and he's commanding the middle of the park perfectly. And he's been a player. He's doing a role that we've been missing since Brown left, really,
Mm-hmm.
which we expected McCarthy to maybe come in and do. You've got McCarthy there as backup as well. You've got Kalmack, Turnbull coming back, Rogic. It's incredible. Adiguchi. It's like the
Mhm.
midfield is absolutely stacked, and it's good in terms of rotation and depth, but I don't know how Ange's going to pick the team going forward. And
What was
when we do this, and we're like, what do you think the team's going to be for such and such a game? You'd be
yeah,
drawing
it
names
could
out of
be
hat.
it could be anything, but I think it's streamlined at the minute, obviously, because there's players in international duty, there's some players in there, so you can kind of guess the lineup. But during the game, as you said, like we had 76% possession, 21 shots, 8 shots on target, 14 corners. We dominated the game, and people are probably going to be like, why is he reading off stats? That's just from BBC Sport. I didn't take note of any of that, so there you go. But it does prove the fact that we dominated that game, and people were saying Dundee United had a game plan that was nearly executed, fair enough, and it's up to Celtic to find ways around that. Abada does that in the last sack, basically last kick of the game. That composure is at the start. But I want to touch upon a few player performances, John, before we move on to that goal itself. Now, at half time, there was people calling for Forrest to be took off, for Scales to be took off, and that evidently happened. Juranovic come on and Felipe Ayala come on. But just to touch upon Forrest at the moment, I've seen a lot of people not criticise him, but say you can see he's lost the art of pace. He's lost that kind of spark in the final third where he used to take the players on, whip a ball in, or score a goal, or create an opportunity for himself. And I have to tend to agree. And it's not pigeonholing him or getting at him, because he's a Celtic legend. He's been there for it all. Obviously, won the 9 in a row quadruple treble. He was a major part of all them victories. But I can see from what I'm watching anyway on the TV that he is not the same player. He doesn't have that burst of pace. Now people can say, and maybe down to injury problems, he's getting back to full fitness. But where do you sit on it?
I mean, yeah, Forrest for me. Listen, we know he's a player, and he's been a great servant for us, and we know that when he's at full fitness and he's on his day, he's a great player, and he can certainly offer us a lot. And I still think he can. Like, I don't think that's changed. He's just come back for injury. He does look a yard off the pace. That might come back. I'm hoping it comes back. But I mean, if it doesn't, he's still a good player to have as backup. Again, he adds to that depth when you're needing fresh legs and stuff as well. Because I think once we're back at full strength, I don't think Forrest is going to be starting. In terms of like your first 11, your top 11, I don't think Forrest fits into that picture. But having him available on the bench to come on and play either side, and you know that you can bring him on for a Jota if legs get tired, you can bring him on for a Abada if legs get tired. It's useful, and I think it still adds an element of quality. I don't think we'll get a full 90 minutes out of him going forward at the minute, but I still think he's a player, and I still think he'll do a job for us.
I mean, obviously he's a player. No one's doubting the qualities, but it's obviously you can see it in the blind eye. I mean, you don't need to be an expert to see that he's kind of dropped off the pace. But I mean, here's hoping it is injuries. But you did mention at the start of the podcast there about killing off teams early, and big part of that's the striker and Giamakis or Yakimakis, whatever you want to pronounce his name. And for me, he was, I wouldn't say hopeless against Dundee United. He just, nothing came off for him. His first touch was bouncing off him. He wasn't really making runs in behind. And anytime he did get an opportunity, the one where he basically was one-on-one with Segrist, he wasn't really aware of what was around him. And then he lost it from that tackle from Butcher. But what's your opinion on him? Obviously, he scored, what was it, 2-2 or 3-3 leading up to that game. He wasn't kind of good form, but a lot of people are saying again that this kind of points to the player that he actually is.
No, I mean, I think he's still a player. And he's still got a lot to offer us. Look, the one of the things I hate, and people might get annoyed at me for saying this because
Shock horror.
they'll be part of the group that I'm referring to. Because when I'm speaking about Celtic fans in general, we can be very, very fickle and very harsh when it comes to players. And I get it. Like, you want players to hit the ground running, and they need to be on fire, and they need to be scoring goals. If you're a striker at Celtic, you need to be scoring goals. That's why you're there. But he's played a handful of games. He's had his own injury problems to deal with. He's still sort of settling in, bedding in. We said the same about Starfelt. You remember Starfelt when he came in? He looked a bit thing with him. I was an advocate for him. I was saying, like, just give him a chance, stick with him. I'm sure he's going to come good. Like, there's a player there, and lo and behold, he's starting to show that there's a player there. He's had the time. He's starting to get used to everything. Yakimakis needs that game time, and he needs to just continue to play with these guys. And again, he offers us something, even as a starter. Maybe he doesn't start when Kyoga.
Where do you go with that one?
I spent too much time here talking to you. Kyogo and Maeda and all that, when they're back, you've got a number of guys who can play through the middle. And again, Yakumakis is another guy who offers an option off the bench. He gives you a bit of presence in the box that Kyogo and Maeda don't. He gives you a bit of height in the box that Kyogo and Maeda don't. And again, I think it's unfair to say that I don't think by any means he was poor against Dundee United. Like I said, Seagrass saved him an absolute embarrassment. There was that shot that Yakumakis had at the far post, or his near post, and when he hit it, and he was tucking it in the inside of that, and Seagrass dived the opposite direction, but he managed to flick his toe out, caught the ball, and knocked it over the bar. And how on earth he saved that, I don't know. You could take that shot another million. Listen, you could take that shot another million times, and he's never saving that again.
Oh no, I totally agree.
That was a 1 in a million save, and that's what I mean. It's like it was one of the days for us in front of goal, and that's why we need to be a wee bit more clinical. I think Yakumakis still has a lot to offer though, and like I says, he still gives us another option in the box. He's a bit of presence, as I says. People just need to chill out.
I think as well. I do get what you're saying. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, you can't really take away. He did have a poor game by all accounts. His touch wasn't.
I didn't think it was that poor. Like I said, you can't say he had a poor game. Listen, the team we set, like you said, teams set up. They had a game plan against us. All of them do, and they all set up the exact same way. We're the only team in the league to do this way, where it's every man's behind the ball. They're all compact in the box. They all defend really tight, and it's hard for anybody to do anything against that. Like, it doesn't matter. You're trying to break down 11 guys, and it's nigh on impossible sometimes. So, I mean, they stifled Yakumakis. That was part of their game plan. You have to stifle the attacking threat, but that doesn't take away from him, because he still got himself into spaces. He still managed to create chances. Seagrass, as I said, was their man of the match. If it wasn't for Seagrass, then it wasn't for him just pulling saves out of nowhere, then we would have won that comfortably. Yakumakis would have had 2 or 3, and we wouldn't be having this conversation.
I know, again, I do agree with what you're saying, but again, there's different opinions, obviously, within what people do see, and you keep holding your mouth there. I know your tooth's absolutely killing you, but it's like almost, he did, for me anyway, had a poor game, but we'll move on from that, because as you said, if he scored 2 or 3, we'll be talking about a totally different kind of thing here. But you look at the control that Celtic have in games, and that's something that's improving week in, week out under Ange Postecoglou, much against the style that people say would be that kind of swashbuckling thing. The controls definitely came about. And a big part of that for me was Bitton. He's come in the number 6. He's filled in there, back into his normal position, midfielder, breaks up the play, does the simple things well. He can even play a pass forward, which is great to see. But he got that sending off. Now, if you rewind 2 seconds previously, Greg Taylor gets done from behind, literally gets put in the ground, fouled 3 or 4 times before Bitton even makes that. So shouldn't even get that far by the referee. But no, take that away from the game, and Bitton himself, he makes a clear difference when he's in that number 6 role, doesn't he?
Absolutely. Me and William touched on this in the last episode as well. Like, since Bitton's been great in that role, and I said it earlier. If you go back and listen to our earlier podcast, excuse me, before Anne started making signings and bringing guys in, when we knew we'd lost Bruni, we were saying, and we were talking about, we need to get somebody in with a bit of dig, somebody who could come in and control that midfield. We were so used to Bitton playing a defensive role in previous seasons and filling in for other guys early in the season that we never actually considered it. And he got made to play that role, and like that number 6, and he's been outstanding for us this season, I think. And he, like you say, he's solid. You can rely on him. There's confidence here when he plays, and like you said, he can play a pass. He can see a pass. He's good. He's a good ball winner. He can defend to an extent as well. And he commands that midfield as well. And I just think he's been great this year. It's like he's been, in all honesty, because we're so used to him playing in defence, he's been like a new signing.
Yeah, I get that totally. I think what he does bring, I mean, he's the Israel captain, so he's playing for his national team. He captains there, and he brings a common head experience. He's been at Celtic 9 years now, so he's basically due a testimonial soon, which is just madness, to be honest. But
is it honestly been 9 years?
9 years, yeah.
Wow.
He's been there a long time. It's
I
crazy,
knew
isn't
it
it?
was a while, but I didn't think it was 9 years. That's mental.
Yeah. I think he's been there longer than Roddick. I think he has. Maybe around about the same time, but definitely 9 years anyway. But you look at the game, it's basically in the Dan Embers, John, and you're sitting there as a fan, and you're obviously after the result across the city, they blinked, and it was up to Celtic to take advantage of it again, so we can keep the title push going. And we eventually did. A fantastic bit of play by Yoda, a great cross into Abada. And I don't think people talk about this enough. And I've seen people, I agree with what they say. The touch to control that in that situation with the fans, 60,000 people watching you, wishing you to score, takes it down, bangs it into the roof of the net because he knows Seegers is on form. I think that was calculated in his head where he was finishing that. That wasn't just a rush finish. It was a fantastic goal all round from the cross in to the touch to the goal and the celebrations. I've never actually I wish it was there, John. I wish I could feel it, but the clips you see, the clip of Jota in the stand celebrating, we all shared that among the podcast and on our social media channels. But it was more relief, wasn't it? The 2 points, we've cut it to 2 points going into this final game coming up midweek.
Absolutely. I think just going back to that, credit to O'Reilly as well, because his
Yeah.
pass to play Jota on doing that wing, and then like you say, Jota floated it in, and we never had much success with those cross balls in the box or that for that full 90 odd minutes, and then all of a sudden this one comes in, Abada, who that's not his normal position, was there. He's a young guy still, and you think most people at that age or under that kind of pressure would flap at that and it would be going wide or whatever I say. But it says it was a composed finish. I think the composed is a good word to use.
Mm-hmm.
And he tamed the touch and he rattled it in the back of the net. He done exactly what he needed to do, and it was a superb touch. But like you said, yeah, the celebrations were mental. Abada just ripping the shirt off, just chucking it, running into the crowd. The video of Jota as well was incredible to see. Just all the fans just practically carrying him, then celebrating with him. And I mean, you could see what it meant to them as players as well. They knew the significance of that and what that meant coming into this game on Wednesday. And the just think what a finish, and what a feeling. Like I said, we know we were so many points behind a few months ago, and we kept talking. We just need to focus on our results. Don't worry about anything else. Let things just play out the way they're playing out. And they've blinked a couple of times now. They've dropped points, and it's put us in a position to, if we can get a result on Wednesday, which I'm confident we can do, that we'll leapfrog them. And then I think when we do that, the arse will fall out them completely.
It's a bold prediction. Do you know what I mean? It is. I do get what you're saying. There was that famous saying by their ex-chairman saying we'll fall like a deck of cards, which is proven untrue. We've come back stronger this year. We're coming for them, and that's quite evident for anyone to see. And to take advantage of them blinking, as you said, we've done it twice now. Now we're 2 points behind. End of the midweek game here, it's vital, and we can leapfrog them. I'm quietly confident too we get the victory, but we will touch upon that later in the podcast. Now, as we said here now, John, it's Monday. It's transfer deadline day. It's actually basically near the end of it, 4 hours left, whatever it is. It's 8:30 as we speak. So it's been quite quiet at Celtic Park. I mean, there's been a few outgoings. There's not really much rumours or tremors of incomings, but we'll touch on some outgoings just briefly. We've seen Urigidi go to the Belgian club, Jack Hendry, to Austin Day. I think that's how you pronounce it. You'll probably correct me.
You're probably right. I don't know.
But Alan Montgomery is rumoured to be on the verge of joining Aberdeen on loan, which I think is a great move for him. Mikey Johnson, there's murmurs around him yet again. There's a few other players out in loan, but touch upon the Urigidi situation. We had a chat about this in the podcast, and you actually had some valid points. Now, I'm not putting you on the spot here. I just want to get your opinion because
you can't put me in the spot, kid.
I've seen it. I actually have seen it, to be honest, on social media. People are putting up, why we're letting this guy go? We've only had him for 6 months and give them the option to buy, which, much like we did with Jack Hendry, they've multiplied his transfer value. And by all accounts, Urigidi came in with Shaw from Sheffield Wednesday with kind of not massive reputations, but rising stars among the lower leagues of England. And they came in, they did well in pre-season. Liam Shaw's got his loan moved to Motherwell. Urigidi's went on a similar path, but with the option to buy for that club. Do you think that makes sense? Or what waves do you have worked at?
No, I don't think it makes any sense. The loan move itself makes perfect sense. I think these loan moves for the young guys are fantastic opportunities for them to develop. And like you said, we brought the likes of, I mean, I think we all kind of wanted to see a wee bit more for Shaw, and I think the loan move to Motherwell was going to be fantastic for him. Same way Montgomery. I think his loan move's going to be work wonders for him as well. I think it's going to help him develop his players.
Mhm.
We've seen it with the likes of Aya. We've seen it with all the guys, Cal McGregor, Christie. Well, we bought Christie, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They played their time to develop before we brought them in. But Cal McGregor and these guys, it's like these loan moves can be hugely important to their development in their career. Like you said, Urigide came in here. He's still a very, very young guy. He's got a lot of. He's got what you would say was a high ceiling. His potential
Mhm.
is very high. I mean, he plays as a defender. In terms of his stature, his size, his build, he's massive. He's absolutely
Mhm.
huge. He's already got that. He's strong. He just needs to work on his actual footballing and developing his ability to do certain things, all that other kind of carry on. I'm not a coach, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But so it comes up. He's came up here. We managed to what was. I mean, I think Sheffield Wednesday fans were raging at the fact that they've lost 8 guys to us, and for practically nothing. So they've come up here with a bit of reputation as rising stars, and in 6 months you're loaning the guy out. Perfect. It's like I think when we all
Mhm.
heard that he was maybe getting loaned out, you were like, that could be a great move for him. He's going to play, hopefully get regular football. He'll develop. He'll come back to us even stronger. But then you hear that we've slapped or we've agreed to an option to buy for him, and he's only been at the club 6 months. And that for me that's crazy because it's 6 months isn't long enough to determine whether a player's good enough or no.
Mhm.
And in our group chat, I was saying this, and I got a couple of people disagree with me. Most of them disagreeing with me. Surprise, surprise. And that they says, well, look, he's been there 6 months and he's not had a sniff. He was never going to. He was never brought in as a first team starter. It's another prospect, somebody to develop.
Mhm.
But he has featured on the bench. He has played a couple of games here and there. And he's looked a player like he's looked decent in what we've seen him pre-season. He looked decent. The couple of games earlier in the season when we needed defenders, he looked decent. He's came on the bench. Granted, he's not came on the park from the bench, but he's done enough to be able to warrant Ange putting him on the bench. No, it might not have been one of Ange's signings because it was brought in roughly about the time Ange was coming in or just before. Again, we don't know the extent of that. And one of the things that really bothers me is, and this isn't, I'm not saying that this is the case, right? Before I start ruffling any feathers, but it kind of stinks to me because we know what the Celtic board's like, and the second they smell profit,
Mhm.
that's all that matters. So they'll be quite happy to throw away a potential star, somebody who could, in essence, make us a lot of money further down the line, but actually do a job for us for a little bit extra money, because we're getting more back than we spent on them. So we've seen it in the past with numerous people where we've no spent on people because whatever, and we've sold people for less than they probably are worth, because it's more than what we paid for them, right? And now I'm not saying again. I just want to reiterate. I'm not saying that the this is the board's doing because by and large, it looks like Ange is the one rubber stamping signings inbound and outbound. And if he's not
Mhm.
happy with it, it wouldn't happen. I'd like to believe that that's the case and that the board didn't gone behind his back. However, saying that, it wouldn't be the first time they've done it.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if they've done it again. Now, it could be a case of they've got this bid come in, they've had a discussion with Ange. Ange has maybe said, I want him to stay here. And they've like, well, look, we'll send him out on loan. They wanted this attached to it. Blah 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 blah. And I've just been like, look, I'm fine. Look, I've got bigger things to worry about. I need to focus on do you know what I mean? So we
Yeah.
don't know the situation, but it reeks of something that the board's kind of maneuvered because I don't like it at all, and I don't think we should be getting any sort of like see if they're in the youth team and have been for a couple of years, and they're showing no sign of improvement or anything else. I get it, like move them on, but see when
Yeah.
they've been here 6 months and they actually look like a talent and they need the time to develop and grow, and you've got the opportunity to loan them out, do that. Don't just get rid of them. We seen with Jack Henry. Ostend had done the exact same thing. I mean, it did. I don't think any of us expected Jack Henry to have the season he did when he went over there. Let's get that straight, right? None of us
Definitely
seen
not.
that coming. No. But what we did have is, again, a young boy who came up through the ranks, who had a couple of chances at Celtic. He had the opportunity to go out on loan, and it worked wonders for him. And we could have done it, especially at the start of the season, having Jack Henry back on that side and having that backup. That could have been massive for us because he was player of the year over there.
I get in the team of the season in Belgium as well.
Exactly, and that, I mean, let's be real. It's like a lot of us are saying, "Oh, but it's the Belgium. This is the fucking Scottish Premier League. We're no much better. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like, this is the league, one of the best nations on the planet, football nations on the planet. Home and he's went over there. He's done a job. He's been named the Player of the Year. He's been in Team of the Year. His value is 3, 4, 5 times what they paid for him, and then they sell him immediately. Like, they knew what they were doing. They're not stupid. They had that option to buy, and they were like, "Come on, we can take this," and then punt him straight away.
I don't think as well that
I
don't think the Urugidi option to buy kind of fee would be anything astronomical. Probably talking about £1 million.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like there'll be a slight bit of profit there. So Celtic are like, okay, we'll do it because we're making money off a guy who we've spent this much on. We're making this much back. So if they decide, let's say he goes over there, and it's win-win for Celtic in that respect, because if he goes over there, he doesn't perform, and he comes back, then Oostende might not take up the option to buy, and they'll just leave it. Like, he goes back in, he's developing with us, and then we look to get him another opportunity. Or he does go over there, he does perform really well, they buy him, we lose it, but we make a wee bit of money. I just don't like it, man. I don't like it.
I get what you mean.
Let's use Jota as an example, right? He at Benfica never had a look in. He was being touted as a rising star, couldn't get a game for Benfica, and by all accounts, I know a few guys I went to uni with who are Portuguese who are Benfica fans, and they were telling me that he looked a player, and they had high prospect, they had high hopes for his future and everything else. So when we signed him, they were like, "Oh, he'll definitely do a job for you. He's good enough." And when they heard about the fact that he had this buyout clause, it was significantly undervaluing his talent, and we're in a position where we can capitalise on that, and we've not done that yet. At least on the surface, nothing seems to be happening, and we've only got a few years left for that to happen. So I'd like to think, or I'm fucking praying that something's announced. But
I think the biggest thing with that there is people seem to forget it's up to Jota as a player. If he wants to join, he's under no obligation to sign the contract. We could have a bid accepted for all we know, and he's kind of mulling over it. So you don't really know in that situation.
No, you're absolutely right. We don't know. But we've also got Carter Vickers.
Yeah.
And it's a similar situation. Like, do these guys want to be here? Like, I don't know. Are we going to wait till the very last minute at the end of the season? I don't know what the rules are regarding that. If they go straight back to the club, or if we still have a window to pick up that option. I don't know what that entails, but I mean, we desperately want to see us bring these two in. But in terms of everybody that we've brought in, and this is no disrespect to the signings we've made, because I think the business has been incredible. These two are the ones that cost money. And these two are the ones we're not hearing about. And this all comes back to the board and how fucking frugal they are, right? I mean, they're so tight. Like, I don't want this to be another situation where it's we're going to lose out on these guys because they're not willing to pay whatever it is, right? I mean, I don't know what the exact figures are, but with everybody that Ange's brought in, I think the total sum isn't that, it's not large. It's quite.
It's like 14 million, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, and for the amount of players that we've brought in, that's fantastic business. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. And the fact that we've
outgoings are 41 million last time I looked anyway. So
incredible business. And that just shows you obviously the faith that the board have in Ange and letting him pick his players. But is this going to be a case of, well, we've let you bring all these guys in, we've spent this much, we've brought this money in, and they're looking at Jota and Carter Vickers going, that might be a bit expensive though. I'm really hoping this isn't the case, and I don't want to be so negative about it, but I just do not trust this board at all. Like, I really don't.
it's not being negative. I think we'd be fools to forget the shit they put us through last season when they were kind of radio silent,
I've
basically.
not forgot. Not
Do you know what I mean?
forgot.
I think they're trying to kind of maybe at some kind of angle pull the wool over some supporters' eyes by doing this kind of business early on. And as you said, the Carter Vickers and Jota is kind of quiet enough from. And now we might be made their words here by the end of this podcast, the end of the transfer window. They could be
I will
both signed up.
happily
So
eat my words. I will happily eat
and
my words. See, if
bring that on.
not exactly. I mean, we want that to happen. We want them to announce that the
Yeah.
two of them are signing permanent deals. Of course, we do. I think as fans, that's what we. If you were to say to us what we need to do business wise, is secure they two, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Like I don't care if we bring any more people in. I want they two secured. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm saying all this stuff now because as of right now, when we're talking, that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
If that happens
100%.
later, I'll eat my words. Fucking gladly.
But some things that might happen, and Albany Yeti's been linked with Copenhagen for a loan deal with an option to buy. Ismail Assaro's been linked with a loan deal. Apparently that's happening as we speak. Barkas is linked with Gothenburg, John, kind of permanent / loan. Now these players off the wage bill. Now you can't equal this up. Barkas is apparently on 20 grand a week. So if you get him off, that's a big chunk. Albany Yeti, he'll be on about 15, I would say, because he's an international. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you get these guys off the wage bill. Surely you can put some of that towards wages for Jota and Vickers, eh? If you think about it, a business prospect.
Definitely, absolutely. I mean, it certainly makes sense. I can't imagine that Vickers will very likely need to take a wage cut from the deal he's on at the minute. I mean, I think that's fair to say. I don't know what the terms of Jota's deal at Benfica are, but I can't imagine he's on peanuts either. And especially if you want to bring him in, you're going to need to offer him something. And like I said, we will. What's the reported figure? Like 6 million,
6.5.
We'll triple that on him easy. In the long term, easy. Yeah. That is a perfect. That is, if you were a business person, you would be stupid not to pick that up. We don't want him to leave. I'd love him to come here and play for the club for fucking 4, 5, 6 years. That would be fantastic. But we know that Celtic don't operate like that. And especially in this day and age, I mean, that's just not going to happen. So for me, it makes perfect sense to pick them up. And if you can free up the money on the wage bill, then absolutely. So I would just wave bye to Barkas. And
the best goal scorer in Celtic history, Albany Yeti.
By the way, and I'm going to say this as well. I mentioned earlier about players needing chances. Yeti, he's had some chances, but I still think there's a player in there. I just don't think I think that it's time. We need to just cut our losses there.
If you're honest as well, there's a player somewhere in Barkas deep down. Do you know what I mean? There's a player in all these guys. It just hasn't worked out at Celtic Football Club, and unfortunately, sometimes you just need to cut ties, get whatever you can for them, and move on. And hopefully, Celtic do that.
I mean, I've said that numerous times, Stephen. There's players that have come here with big reputations and haven't been able to sort of fit or meet that grade or that bar that was set for them, or that they've set themselves even. And I think a lot of people underestimate this. Like Joey Barton's a prime example. Is somebody coming up here thinking he's going to boss it and getting absolutely bossed himself. But I mean, we've had other players come here. I don't want to name too many people at the end of their career because that's unfair. But I mean, Robbie Keane was still a decent player at the time. I mean, he had matches where he struggled as well.
What was it? 15 goals in 17 games he got? I think that was a decent return. It was something like that.
Listen, I don't know what the exact figures of that were, but what I'm saying is there was matches, and this I'm trying to bring it back. There was matches where you were like, he had abysmal games, but if you look at the bigger picture, it worked out in our favour. And the point I'm trying to make is it comes back to like, he's had enough chances and he's not done the same. So we need to it's time to cut losses. Giakoumakis has only been here a few months. He's not had the same opportunity yet and the same amount of chances. And we need to sort of give him time to find his feet and see what he can do, if anything. But and Sorrow's loan move, I'm happy with that. Like, as long as it's, I think there's a player in Sorrow as well.
You'll be seeing you later on combusting, John. But I mean, We'll move on from the transfer side of things and we'll get into the crunch game, the Derby game, Glasgow Derby, Wednesday, under the light, 7:45 kickoff at Celtic Park. An unusual time for all of us to even think about a Glasgow Derby game, but it's one I'm certainly looking forward to seeing. I think the atmosphere will be electric. Rangers come in, still top of the league. We're 2 points behind, John. They seem to have bolstered the squad with the signings of like Diallo from United and the kind of imminent signing of Aaron Ramsey from Juventus. So there seems to be they have strengthened kind of some quarters in the team. That's if he's available and fit. But get into the game, I'm confident of getting a result. I don't think you're going to say anything different, really, are you?
No, I'm not. One thing we need to remember is that I think we're the form team at the minute, and we're going into this in a much better level of confidence. I firmly believe that we're in a much stronger position than Rangers are, regardless of who they're bringing in. I mean, less said about that, the better. It's just, I'm confident. I mean, I don't want to be overconfident, but I'm confident. Like I think that there's enough about us to be able to see them off, and I think that we will get the 3 points. I mean, look at it. They're coming into Celtic Park, right? It's not going to be like last time, and it's going to be packed, and it's going to be packed with Celtic fans, the Rangers fans. It's going to be absolute hell for the Rangers players. And for
is
the
that
new
confirmed?
boys,
There's not going to be 100 fans. Is that confirmed?
But I fucking don't care. You're not going to hear 100 fans anyway.
800
as well, even 800. They'd be as well no turning up. What I'm saying, I've lost my train of thought there. It's going to be. It'll be what's that term that all these asshole reporters throw about?
An advert for Scottish football?
No, that one. Like when they say it's a cauldron, or like the birthing them or some pish. Anyway, like for Diallo and all that, like and Ramsey, if they come here, it's like they might have played in front of teams like, and like for Ramsey, he's played in England, shite stadiums, shite fan bases. Absolutely, so the other man. Let's be honest, there's no passion in it, and Italy's different. The atmosphere at Celtic Park is going to be absolutely electric, and they're going to need to tune everything out in order to perform, and I don't think they're going to be able to. No, I don't think many of them in that team are going to be able to.
I think one of the most stark reminders that we can actually think of as Celtic fans, we haven't beat them since 2019. So again, it's no, but you have to point out these facts. It could be a mentality side of things.
Just don't like hearing it.
No, but it could be a mentality side of things for previous regimes that Ange has to stamp out and change that culture, which evidently he has done. So that's why I'm confident at the end of the game. I think, as you said, with a form team, we're playing the best football. And who knows, John, this could be the game where we give a team a smashing that we're always talking about. That's hope it is. But we'll find out Wednesday. But in terms of team news, nothing really kind of to speak about. There is rumours that Rogic and Mieta could come back, kind of regarding how many minutes to play for our national teams. But we're going to park that to the side because I can't really see that happening. They did it before with, remember, F.A. Ambrose for the European game, brought it back from international duty, and it just didn't work out at all. It was like 24 hours he was flying and all jet lag, that type of thing. I don't think it works well. But we're getting into the game. What would your team be?
Difficult, Stephen, because I think that Ange's got a couple of aces up his sleeve.
Do you believe that? Do you really believe that they can?
100%.
Nah,
100%. Listen,
so you're trying to tell me, and all the photos took at Lennoxtown, Kyogo's not been in one photo, and you're holding a torch thinking he's fit.
Who puts out the photos?
The SNS media group that done that, or something like that. I don't know.
Listen, Kyogo's playing.
No, he's not.
He is. And so, by the way, I just want to say, if Maida and Rogic are back, like even if I know they've been playing at the national games and they're flying and everything else, like if they're even if you can get them on the bench and get some minutes at them, like later on in the game, I'm happy with that. I think Callum McGregor might start. I know he looks like he's got a very sore face.
Oh, he does, doesn't he? It looks a bad one. And that does bring it back. But like, how did the referee not see that? That's shocking. That is absolutely terrible.
Don't get me fucking started on referees at the minute. We've not got time. But no, listen, look, we saw Callum McGregor. It showed you scenes, footage of Callum McGregor, and he's standing pit side. His face is bruised, and it looks a dullion, but he was chewing gum. Now, I don't know if you know anybody that's ever fractured their cheekbone or their eye socket or anything like that. That would be absolute chronic pain they would be in, and they would not be sitting pit side chewing gum if that was the case. So I don't think it's a fracture. I think he's just taking a dullion to the side of the face and it's all bruised. But even saying that, people have played through games with fractures. You get masks specifically designed to protect you.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
So to say that it's completely out of the picture that he's starting or he's going to be available is silly, because by all accounts he could play. I want to see him there. And we know that people have played through worse facial injuries than that. So I'm holding. I've got my fingers crossed that he's going to be available. I think.
But you didn't answer my question. You kind of ducked it. Do you actually really think Kyogo's available? Do you think Kyogo's available?
Part of me is saying aye. I think. Listen, right? You don't want to give too much away. You're coming into the biggest game of the season, right? This is an opportunity to leapfrog them. They've tripped up and blinked in the past month a couple of times now, and you're coming in here. Mind games are going to play a part here, right? They're coming to Celtic Park, a packed Celtic Park under the lights. Celtic team on form, fans it's going to be absolutely electric, and you're going to announce that team just prior to the game. Now, Van Bronckhorst is going to be setting his team up to play against who he thinks is going to be available, right? So you don't want to give too much away. I wouldn't do it, and that would be an absolute masterstroke, a tactical masterstroke if Van's done that. In terms of that, you see Kyoga's name on that team sheet, Callum McGregor's name on that team sheet, Maeda, Rogic on the bench, or whatever the case may be. Listen, I'm. If it doesn't happen, then do you know what? It doesn't happen. But I'm kind of, there's part of me that believes it might happen. And I might be overly optimistic, and it might be absolutely shite, but I just want to believe that that's going to be the case. And
well, give me your full lineup.
I'm running with it.
Give me your full lineup.
So I think it's going to be Hart and goal, obviously.
I know what you're going to say for right back. It's just gospel for you right now.
Listen, I know what it's probably going to be, but I'm going to stick with my guns.
Okay.
So I'm going Ralston at right back. Right? Carter Vickers, Starfelt, Juranovic at left back. Listen, I'm sticking with it. I'm no flatting here. Listen, I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with my guns. Then I think Carmack might start. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't.
Right. Okay.
But failing that, I'd want to see if no McGregor, I'd want to see Bitton.
He's suspended. He can't play.
Oh shit! So he is.
McCarthy has to come in. Oh.
So right, Carmack's definitely starting, right? So Carmack, and then
Carmack's definitely starting. Listen to
he's definitely starting. Hatate, and if Rogic is back, Rogic. If he's no starting, aye, definitely. But Riley, I'm happy with Riley as well. And then up front, Jota on the left, Kyogo, and probably Abada to start.
But I really can't believe that you think Kyogo's just going to go boop and then he'd be there. It's not going to happen.
Why not though? Why not though?
He's got a really bad injury. Postecoglou said this. He literally confirmed it, that he's going to be out for weeks. Like
Postecoglou also said not to expect any more signings, and then we brought in O'Reilly.
I do like the optimism.
Listen, I'm going to remain optimistic, right? Because I just desperately want it to happen, and I just think Ange just strikes me as the type that's just going to play with the media, play with them, play mind games, and then just give us an absolute gift.
Well, put it like this, right? For me, anyway, it seems like you have a wee bit of a lack of confidence in what could be the team. If it was Giamakis up front and just say McCaffrey starting and Riley starting instead of Roger, Kyogo, and McGregor, would you be still confident into that?
I'm not happy with the McCarthy starting. And I think that's
right?
that's an integral part of the midfield three, like that, and the thought of McCarthy being in there, he's going to have the game of his fucking life, because
He's going
if
to
he
have to
plays any,
run. That's
listen, if he plays anything like he has been playing recently, I'm not confident about that him starting at all. But he's going to have to turn it on, and he's going to have the game of his life. But listen, if everything aside, let's just say Kamak, Kyogo, Maida, Rogic isn't happening. I still think that I'm still confident we've got enough about us to beat them. Because listen, Rangers aren't going to sit back and play for a draw like every other team that we come up against. They're going to want to win. They're going to want to increase the lead that they've got over us, and they're going to do everything they can to make sure that happens. But as far as I'm, if they open up against us, we're going to score goals.
Yeah, I totally agree. My team would be Hart, obviously goalkeeping, Ralston right back, Carter Vickers, Starfelt, Taylor, Juranovic in the 6, with Hatate, O'Reilly, Abada, Gio, and Jada. That's my team.
I know, I saw your team in the group chat.
I think that's a great team. Juranovic can play midfield. He's played there before, so it could be an opportunity.
I'm not saying he can't, but I mean, he's certainly better at right back than he is in midfield.
Aye, well, he's better right back than he is at left back, but that doesn't stop you putting him there, does it?
No, because he's also better at left back than Greg Taylor is.
But by all counts, what do you think of Scales? By the way, he got took off early.
I actually quite like Scales, and I thought he had a decent game. I thought it was all right. He didn't put a foot wrong.
Would you throw him in against Rangers?
No,
fair enough. But
it's too big a game.
Yeah,
I think we'll concede. We're conceding against much weaker opposition when they're catching us on the break. So it wouldn't surprise. But I'm going to say 4-2 to us.
Oh, 4-2.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. I'll go 3-2. I think we'll concede as well. I think it will be a classic game, and that whole kind of phrase advert for Scottish football is something that will be banded about for this, because it's 7:45 Celtic Park on the lights. I'm expecting a great game, and it's one that we're both confident about, and obviously hope every Celtic fan's confident about. I think we're going to get into great form, as you said, the form team. And that kind of brings us to the end of the podcast. We've given you the state of play of the transfer window as it stands in terms of a Celtic point of view. We've recapped the game against Dundee United. It was vital to be 2 points behind, get into this final game against Rangers. But have you enjoyed this one, John? The first time we've been on the Killer since the Neil Lennon resignation?
Aye, it's been good, mate. And let's say it's good to be back on. Like, even though I'm in a lot of discomfort at the minute, it's only 40, but less than an hour of my time. So I'll be going dope myself up with more painkillers after this. But it's good to be back on, and it's good to just talk about football again, because it's been a wee while since I've been on. And I've said this in the last episode, for everybody that's new, I've tried to send it on different, so it's got our names in that now, so you can tell who people is. Who was it in the chat? Was it Daniel MC in the chat that was saying that we need to start adding, because he couldn't remember his name? Well, Daniel, that's for you, mate. So, so for everybody that's new, I'm John, and I talk a lot. Sometimes it's hard to get me to shut up. You have to cut me off. I'll go on rants.
You increase the time of the podcast. So that does well for everybody. Don't worry. And as you said, for anyone who's new to the channel, who's new to watching or listening to this, just hit subscribe, hit the wee bell, be notified when we go live. All new videos and stuff every Tuesday and Friday as it stands at the moment. But until we speak again, until the game is done on Wednesday night of another result, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.